What's going on, everybody? So in this video, we are going to be talking about some of the top 5 sales mistakes you absolutely need to avoid if you want to generate more leads, close more deals, and make more money. Now, before we go ahead and get started, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. And by the way, if you want to take your sales game to the next level, make sure to check out my masterclass Sales Legacy at saleslegacy.com. And let's go ahead and dive in with this video. So I've been in sales game for a while, and when it comes to sales mistakes, what I've realized is that the only person or thing that is stopping someone from making more money and achieving the dream that they actually want is actually themselves. All problems usually stem from the self. Obviously it's easy to blame others, your company, your products, your territory, whatever, right? It's easy to blame others. But in actuality, if you really want to take control over your own life, you have to just assume it's your responsibility, right? Everything is your fault at the end of the day. And on the flip side, because everything is your fault and you take the responsibility, you also have the power to make a difference in your life. And so the first tip I have for you is you need to drop your ego. Now, ego is the killer of success. I see a lot of people, whether it's people I've trained in sales through my courses or people that I've hired even, right? Whenever I feel like people reach a ceiling on their skills, it's usually not because they're not smart enough. It's not because they don't know enough. It's because they have too much ego. They think they're better than they actually are, so they don't want to improve, right? So let's say I'm training somebody in sales, right? Maybe they just graduated from schools. They want to get a tech sales job or something like that. This person, thinks they're really good. Let's say they, got straight A's in school and they're like, oh, I'm so good at talking. Everyone says I'm good at talking. They're going to think they're good at sales, right? But the reality is maybe they're good at talking, but it doesn't make them a natural in sales. So maybe they go out into the field and then they get slapped in the face, metaphorically, I mean, and maybe they don't sell as much as they thought they could. And they're going to be wondering like, oh, what happened? I thought I was so good and suddenly I'm not. And the reason for why this happens, I've seen it so many times, especially during my time at Oracle, when I watched my peers, right? It's that even though they've done really well socially in school and things like that, but to apply it to sales is a little bit different. To be good at sales, you actually need to follow a process. There are certain techniques and strategies that you should use, and you have to actually put in work. You can't rely on the skills that you had before. You need to learn certain sales skills if you want to learn how to close, learn how to start a conversation, learn how to identify pain, right? These are all skills that can be learned. So the people that don't learn are the ones that have an ego, and they just don't go very far because they never admit to themselves that the only reason for why they're not succeeding is themselves. But once you admit like, hey, I'm not as good as I thought I actually was. What can I learn? Please teach me, right? If you have that mentality, it's very difficult to lose. Now, some people, they literally live their entire life, their entire career with an ego, and that's why they get capped. They just stop. They don't have the motivation to go forward because they find it hard to look in the mirror at themselves and say, hey, you're not as good as you think you are. That's just an unfortunate reality. On the flip side, if you are willing to let go of your ego, and if you are willing to learn, then the world is so much easier. It's because not many people have this kind of mindset. Now, the next step I have for you when it comes to sales mistakes you should avoid is selling to the wrong customer. And this is for my entrepreneurs out there, my coaches, my consultants, anyone that sells a service even. When you are selling to the wrong person, that can actually be very detrimental to your business and to your sales. Here's why. When I've sold like marketing services to other companies, right? In the beginning, it's kind of like you are willing to be more lenient on clients that you're working with. So you're like, oh, maybe you don't check all the boxes, but you checked a couple boxes, so I'm going to work with you. At the time, I might think like, hey, the money's worth it. It may not be the best fit, but I still want to do it. But then when it's not the best fit, what ends up happening is that it just becomes a pain to work with. Everybody's slow. Things aren't really moving. Yeah, you're getting paid, but it's like you would rather spend your time doing something else. So even if you're getting paid, it doesn't mean the client is worth it, right? Because your time is the most valuable asset you have, and you want to be working with your dream clients. So if I ever worked with a client, if I help them with sales and marketing, it would be people that are willing to learn, have the budget, and easy to pay me. There's other conditions as well, but those are two of the main important ones. And typically when I work with brands or clients who have an ego, like we talked about before, it's very difficult for them to like admit that they're not as good as they think they are. Then they spend months and months spinning their wheels and they just don't get anywhere, right? If you want to sell to the right customer, you actually have to clearly define who that customer is and be very strategic and strict on making sure that when you qualify clients, they actually fit your ideal customer profile, right? In the beginning, when you're starting out, maybe you don't have much options. Maybe you take anything because you need to put a roof over your head. There's nothing wrong with that. But once you get the ball rolling a little bit, you know who you like to work with and you know who you don't like to work with, then you got to be more strict, because if you're spending time, on 5 bad clients, you can spend that time time finding new clients. And if you have, you replace those bad clients with new, better clients, and you make more money, you have more free time, right? So it's more of a long-term play, but really being crystal clear on your ideal customer profile is very important. Like for me, I kind of pretty much only want to work with people who are very competent, have the budget, people with integrity and honesty. These are things that are very important for me, right? So if you don't have those things, I don't want to work for you. And that's just the reality of how things go, right? Be very strict on that, because your time is the most valuable assets, and it would be a shame if you felt you're servicing clients that you don't even want to talk to or work with, right? Now, the next tip I have for you gotta differentiate from your competition. Now, I know a lot of you guys are selling marketing services, SEO services. Maybe you do YouTube video editing for people, cut up their long form, put it into shorts, whatever the case is, right? If you're starting out, most likely people can copy whatever it is that you do. So you might be selling a commoditized skill. So like running Facebook ads, for example, can be seen as a commoditized skill, especially if you're just like mid-tier, right? So the key here is you want to differentiate yourself from other people. And the thing is, it's just like human psychology, but to be perceived as better, you first have to be perceived as different, okay? So you want to just show other people that you are different from others. Actually, in some cases, it doesn't even matter if you're better or not. You just have to show that you're different. And psychologically, people think like, oh, because this person's different, they must be better. It's kind of weird, but that's just the reality of how things go, right? In sales, right? Even especially for me, if I sell, let's say, advising services, marketing services, and things of that nature, what I try to do is I want to explain to the client why I'm different from everybody else. And you too, right? You have to assume that other people are going to be looking for a competitor. They're going to try to find the same thing for a cheaper price, all these things like that, right? Everybody wants the best deal. The unfortunate mistake that a lot of people fall into, and I've been in this situation before, is let's say you offer a certain product or service, they shop around, they try to find someone who offers the same thing at a cheaper price, and they go with the cheaper version. But in reality, the reason why you're more expensive is because you actually offer something totally different or something that's higher value, but the customer doesn't see it. If they think what you offer and the other guy offers the same, but the other guy's cheaper, they're going to always go for the cheaper one, right? So that's why during the sales process, it's really important to first identify the prospect's pain, show them that you can solve their pain, and then show why the way you do it is so much different from everybody else. Once they're able to realize that, then they're going to be looking at you. Even if a competitor offers something similar-ish for a cheaper price, they're not going to go with the competitor because they understand that when they go with you, you're going to be worth the value, right? So it's not about who's the most cheapest, who's the most expensive. It's about who will get the job done, who has a higher certainty or guarantee that the job will be done, who's going to be doing it on time. And these are all things that come together to create a really good offer. So differentiate, show that you're different, and it's going to be so much easier to sell and also easier to charge higher prices. Now, the next thing you need to avoid is selling something complex. So whether you work in technology, consulting, or whatever the case is, there's a tendency for people to make things very complicated. So back in the day when I used to live in Silicon Valley, I would be selling an API. The idea was that because we're selling APIs, like some sort of technology, right, to people that have no idea what an API is, if we try to be all nerdy with it and say like, oh, we can integrate this and that, and it's like they're not going to get it and they're not going to buy. So we had to like sit down as a sales team and really think like, okay, we got to explain this very technologic product in a very simple way where people understand in order for them to buy it. So we would have to explain things in a very, very, very simple way, like fifth grader level, in order for them to understand. Now, for your product and service, whether it's marketing services or even if you work at a tech company, you want to take the same approach. Like never make the cop-out excuse like, oh, the customer just doesn't get it. The reason why they don't get it is because you don't get it enough to explain it to them in an easy way. So whatever complex things you're selling, make it so simple that you can explain it to a 12-year-old and they would get it. Selling's gonna be so much easier. The final sales mistake you gotta avoid is this, and that is not living in the present. So as entrepreneurs or business people or even salespeople who are very ambitious and goal-oriented, a lot of times we like to think about the future. We like to think about what we can accomplish. There's always a new mountain to climb. Although it is good because it kind of fuels you and you have a goal of where you want to go. But the dark side of it is that if you're always thinking about the future, you're not living in the present. You're living in tomorrow. But the only thing that we have is today. So a lot of entrepreneurs out there, it's like we always think about the future. And then if we don't feel like we're moving closer to our goal, we get very dark. We get very disappointed on ourselves. Then we start working even harder because we get very insecure of not hitting our goals, right? But when you kind of operate in that way, you're burning a candle too fast, right? It's like this dirty energy that you're burning, and it can really lead to sacrifices in your present life, whether it's with your friends, family, relationships, your health, whatever the case is. So the key for me, at least, is that I try to live in the present. What that really means is understanding this fundamental concept. Time is the most valuable asset anybody has. The greatest honor you can give someone is to spend time with them, right? Having dinner with somebody, having a conversation, because it's literally the most valuable thing you have. So everything I try to do, whether it's sales or business, communicating with my team or hanging out with friends, I make a conscious effort to be more present. So if I'm with somebody hanging out by the pool, it would be a shame if I was constantly thinking about work and trying to achieve my goals, because then it's a waste of time. There's no point of me even being there, right? So having respect for your own time, having respect for other people's time, and living in the present, right? If you're gonna have fun, have fun. If you're gonna work, focus on work, right? Don't go on work and then go on Instagram, every 10 minutes. It's like, if you're gonna work, actually work. If you're gonna have fun, have fun. And once you live more in the present, you appreciate those moments and you really feel like you're living, right? And sometimes, especially in relationship, it's like, you don't have to spend a lot of time with the person, but you just have to make sure that the time that you spend with them is of high quality. So that's a pretty powerful tip that I'm even applying to my life, more and more every day. How do you become more present? I think it's one, it's just becoming more aware in general. Number two, it's journaling and understanding yourself and understanding your surroundings. Number three, it's meditating and feeling okay with your thoughts and just being in the moment, right? Now, I'm not going to make a whole video about meditation and all that stuff because I feel like you can watch that on other YouTube channels, but those are things that I personally been implementing, journaling and meditating. So highly recommend you at least check it out, right? And so those are going to be some of the top 5 mistakes that sales people make all the time. If you enjoyed it, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, turn on notifications. And if you want to take your sales game to the next level, I actually got a free training on saleslegacy.com, and I will see you in the next one.